Hello everyone, it's Senrex here from the Order 66 Hellions, and today I'm doing a guide on how to improve your own personal territory war experience. On the itinerary today, I'm going to go over who this is for and why territory war is so important. Second, I'm going to go through my territory war credentials. Third, I'm going to talk about for people that are picking for a guild, what you should be looking for, how to fact check a recruiter's information, and things that you'd want to avoid when you're looking for a new guild. Fourth, I'm going to go through a few ways to increase your account's territorial value. Fifth, I'm going to talk about some good teams and characters that you should probably farm if you're interested in getting into a high-tier territory war guild. Sixth, I'm going to conclude a little bit, and then seventh, I'm going to do some self-promotion as always. So let's get right into it. First, who's this for? This video is really for anyone who's just looking to get into a more competitive guild or is trying to take their guild events a little bit more seriously. Improve their overall roster value, and looking to get better rewards, as well as someone who's looking for a guild that shares a level of competitiveness. I know there's a lot of players that play this game who have really good accounts and are really competitive, but their guild is just not up to snuff. To those people, I'd say it's a time to move on, because you're not doing anyone favors by staying in a guild that's mediocre, that does lackluster in certain game modes, when you should be in a higher level guild that helps you grow quicker and learn more about the game. Now we're going to go over a little bit of why territory war is important. Same thing as in my last video. There's really two kinds of guilds in the game. There's territory war guilds and there's territory battles guilds. Territory war guilds are usually great at TB, at territory battles, and territory battle guilds are usually awful at territory war. Why is this? It's because territory war is simply the best indicator of a guild's activity and competence, meaning that territory war guilds often have more competent players because the game mode of choice that they focus on is more skillful and involved. Therefore, given this information, the territory war guilds are going to do better in territory battles compared to the territory battles guilds in territory war. And then on the flip side, territory battles is indicative of your ability to relic characters and deploy them, which isn't really indicative of any skill sets. It's just indicative of farming patterns. You don't need to be super active or super competitive to deploy those characters and to relic those characters. Some of the combat missions are pretty difficult, but at the end of the day, most of them just come down to, do you have characters to high enough levels? So there's not really a whole massive skill component on that end. Final note, a good territory war record is the best indicator of a guild's health and competitiveness, meaning that if you are looking to get more involved in this game, you want to join a guild that has at least a 70% win rate in territory war, as these are the guilds that are going to be the most successful and helpful to their members. So credentials, who am I? Just like the last video, I'm Senrex. I'm a 7.1 million GP player. I'm in Kyber 4 right now. On average, I average 206 offensive banners and 231 defensive banners. In my guild, I'm in the bottom 10 for Galactic Power. Middle of the pack, about 25th for Grand Arena, and I am in the top 10 for Territory War. I am an extremely highly competitive Territory War player. I've got a few guilds that I focus in and help a little bit. The Order 66 Hellions, which is where my main account is. We're 31-3 in Territory War right now, so a very good record for the 400 million GP bracket. I'm in SWGOH Houtini, which is a 230 million GP guild that is 104-3 in Territory War, and I've got an alt in this guild. And then lastly, the Creators of the Last Dragon, someone who I know, he runs the guild, and I'm helping him out starting it up. And they're currently 3-0 in Territory War, but every single Territory War they participated in, they have squashed their opponents, scoring over 4 times the amount of banners that they have. So this guild is going to be really good in Territory War for the long term. Alright, let's talk about picking a guild. First, you got to consider a few questions. First, you got to ask yourself, if you perform well in GAC, if you're active daily, do you get your 600 tickets? Do you compete and climb in Fleet Arena every day? And do you always participate in events? Based on how you answer these questions, you should be looking for a guild that follows the same guidelines as you. If you really do well in GAC, and if you're active daily and you get your 600, but you don't really participate in a specific event, you want to be looking for a guild that's pretty active, that doesn't really main that event. For me particularly, I don't really focus on the Crate Dragon raid. I don't really enjoy the game mode. I don't think it's a lot of fun, and I think that the teams that they require you to farm are largely pretty useless outside of the raid. So my guild doesn't really focus too hard on that. We still try our best, but we're not requiring any farms or anything. So if you're kind of the same mindset as me, you want to look for a guild that identifies with you based on these questions. Second, you got to consider how valuable your roster is. Now, I'm a recruiter, so I see a lot of people who are trying to join my 400 million galactic power guild that have like 4 mil galactic power. And I'm like, our average player's got like 8 million GP. There's absolutely no reason that we'd accept someone that's got 4 million galactic power. So you got to be realistic. First, you got to look at how many galactic legends you have, how solid are your fleets, how does your guild how does this compare to like the current guild that you're in? So like, do you have way more galactic legends and way more solid fleets than the average player in your new guild? Are your Omicrons any good, and do you have lots of viable squads? So you should take all this information into account and look for a guild that agrees with the questions on the left that you have, that has the same stance of you, as well as on top of that is around your level. I'm not saying that you need to be, the best player in your guild, or that you need to be, a super high level, but you want to be able to fairly contribute to the guild that you're joining. If you're a low level player, a 4 million GP account, there's really no reason for you to strive to join a 400 million galactic power guild, as you're really not benefiting that guild whatsoever, and you're going to be more of a hindrance. When if you joined a 320 million GP guild and you've got a really solid 4 million account, you could offer them some serious assistance in their game modes, particularly if you've got really viable characters and are organized about yourself. So don't necessarily reach for the highest GP guild that you can get, because another thing, like a lot of, like, if a really high GP guild that's out of your league accepts you, that's probably indicative that the guild is struggling and might be facing a collapse soon. So, a lot of these really good offers, a lot of really high guilds that invite a lot of lower level players are not necessarily the best place for you to grow your account, because they're probably riddled with inactivity with their players and just not participation fully in events. So, just try and join a guild that associates well with you and your play style and isn't too far out of your reach, meaning that you don't want to be dead last in your guild. Things to look out for. So a lot of people ask me about like recruiting templates. I do a lot of recruiting, so I see a lot of recruiters will send people the guild information that they're advertising for and just totally lie about their statistics. So there's this website called StarWarsGalaxyHeroes.gg Recruiting. The link is going to be in the description, and this shows you information about the guild that you wouldn't necessarily get. So if a recruiter DMs you and says, hey, we get 27 stars in Rise of the Empire and we're 29-0 in Territory War, you're going to want to make sure to check their StarWarsGalaxyHeroes.gg, because a lot of times recruiters will try and catfish you into joining their guild when those are truly not their statistics. I had a dude message me and say that they had won the past 10 territory wars, and then I looked at their GG page and they had lost 7 of the past 10. So I was like, that's ridiculous. Why would he lie about that? So if you're looking to join a new guild, you definitely want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and checking that guild's StarWarsGalaxyHeroes.gg recruiting page. If the guild that you're looking for doesn't have a page like that, if it's not listed on the website, you should not be joining that guild, because any guild that doesn't have a GG page is definitely lying to you, because this website holds them 100% accountable. So if they don't have a page, they don't want to be accountable about something. So if you're looking to join a guild and it sounds too good to be true and they don't have a StarWarsGalaxyHeroes.gg recruiting page, it's probably too good to be true. So I wouldn't take that offer. Lastly, this is really, in my opinion, alliances. If it's usually not good for your account health to be in a non-competitive territory war guild, so joining a guild with a bad territory war record is not a good decision. So if you're going to join an alliance, that's an even worse decision, because a lot of alliances, like the one shown here on the right, have a lot of guilds with varying galactic power that all have really bad territory records. 17 out of 25, 15 out of 25, 11 out of 29. 26 out of 16 and 22 out of 18 are not terrible, but you don't want to be joining a collective of guilds that has a really poor territory war average as a collective. Typically, alliances that suffer from these conditions have recruiting policies that weaken individual guilds, particularly the lower guilds. So if you're an alliance and you're in a lower guild, there's a lot of cases where those lower guilds would just be absolutely sucked dry by the higher guilds for all of their competitive players. So the lower guilds will be not that great. This is not all alliances, but again, StarWarsGalaxyHeroes.gg recruiting has alliance pages that show different alliances. I'd say if you're looking at a guild and alliance, you want to be very, very cautious because most guilds and most alliances are extremely unhealthy when compared with the average independent guild. In my experience, the best guilds are usually independent. So if you're looking at an alliance guild, just make sure that you do your research on that alliance and look into the alliance's statistics, because if it's a collection of 10 to 15 guilds that have really, really, really weak statistics overall, you probably would do better finding another guild. Now, I'm not saying this is all alliances. There's a handful of alliances out there that are really, really great and do a stellar job managing their guilds, but a lot of alliances just fall behind significantly over time. They might start out pretty strong, but then after a year or so, they start losing steam, and since the organization is so large, it's hard for any group of people to manage it. And this causes the guilds to really fall behind. So I'll do a video highlighting some good alliances maybe in the future, but just beware that most alliances are not the best place to have your account, and that most of the best guilds in the game are independent guilds. With that being said, some of the top end guilds have really, really, really solid alliances, but I imagine that nobody who's watching this video is going to be in one of the top 50 guilds in the game. Alright, let's talk about increasing your account's value. When you think about territory war and just overall increasing your account's value, the first thing you want to do is you want to apply some Omicrons. Now, I just started a new account, and the first Omicron I applied was a Pog with a lesser Omicron, which was probably the best decision in the entire game. My first defensive run, it got 9 holds. So if you're a low-level account, between 1 and 3 million galactic power, and you're looking to be more competitive and get into a better territory war guild, you should do the Poggle Omicron immediately, because this will take you up a whole nother level, because a lot of the competitive guilds in the lower echelons of the game are looking for people that have this Omicron. Another good one is Droideka. Droideka is a great Omicron to have. So just be looking at your roster, and as territory war Omicrons come out that complement your roster well, you should be adding those. If you're doing a Supreme Leader Kylo Ren rush, you should do your Phasma Omicron. Everyone should be Wat Tambor ready in order to get into a better guild as they progress in this game, so you definitely want to do a Pog of the Lesser Omicron. Second thing is Datacrons. Farming Datacrons through Conquest is essential. I'm going to have a video guide on how to do that the best way coming out soon. Typically, my rule of thumb is when you start getting into relic characters, you want to have 1 usable Datacron per 5 relic characters. So hypothetically speaking, if you have 50 relic characters, you want to have 10 usable Datacrons. And that just ensures that every single team that you have can have a Datacron on it. Because if you live by this principle like I do, you're going to be a lot better off in most game modes. Here's a screenshot of some of the Datacrons I've farmed from the last set. And this is all totally free to play. So there's certainly an easy way to farm Datacrons for free with the new Simming and Conquest. And you really, really, really want to do this to benefit your guild in Territory War, as well as yourself in Grand Arena Champions, as a roster that has a good Datacron base is more likely to get admitted into a higher level guild, because if you show no interest in farming Datacrons, the guilds are going to know that you're not interested in doing what's best for the guild. Now, like I said before, there's no pressure to spend. It's just you want to do the best with what you can in terms of your free-to-play lifestyle. So, like I said before, these are my Datacrons. These are totally free to play. You can have a really, really, really nasty set of Datacrons absolutely free to play. It's totally doable and actually not that difficult. So let's talk about who you should farm. If you really want to get into a higher territory war guild, I'm going to go through a few points that my 400 million GP guild looks at. So if we're looking at Galactic Legends, we're looking at these 4 in particular. Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, Jabba the Hutt with an Embo Omicron, Lord Vader and Maul, and JMK plus Cat. Now, if you have Lord Vader or JMK and you're rushing one of these 2 characters, I'd recommend taking a look at how far away you are from getting Maul or Commander Ahsoka Tano, because a lot of people that farm these characters flat out will go for Lord Vader or they'll go for JMK when they first start the game, and then they'll get there and they'll be nearly a year and a half away free to play from getting Maul or Cat. The issue is that JMK and Lord Vader are really not that good without their lifter characters. In my opinion, I think Cat is a much better character than JMK, and Maul is a very, very, very solid character. Lord Vader's still good without him, but he's not nearly as usable. So if you're doing a little analysis on Lord Vader and JMK, which my guild does, we want to make sure and check that everyone can get Maul and Cat. But if you're looking for a good Galactic Legend to go for first, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren and Jabba jump out. Supreme Leader Kylo Ren because he is an effective Jabba the Hutt counter and is probably the best offensive Galactic Legend. And second, Jabba the Hutt because when you farm Jabba the Hutt, you get the entire team with him. There's no one extra that you're going to need to farm. Meanwhile, like in JMK's case or Jedi Master Luke's case, all the characters that you're going to be using with them were not required of the mission, so you're going to have to go out of your way to farm more characters. Another thing that you want to look for if you're interested in some non-Galactic Legend characters that really boost your value, Inquisitors are great in Territory War. They counter almost every Galactic Legend with Grand Inquisitor Omicron, so just having Inquisitors in general will get you into a higher tier guild because it's unlocking doors in Territory War for solid counters, as well as giving you a boost in Rise of the Empire TB if you can get the Reva Shard. Second, Starkiller plus Juhani. Juhani Omicron in Territory War is what sets my guild apart from many other guilds in our bracket. Most of the time we have quadruple the Juhani Omicrons that they do, and Starkiller with Juhani Omicron is incredibly good in Territory War. So if you're interested in getting a fairly easily accessible character early off, Starkiller is a great one to get because you can use him with Starkiller Juhani, Mara Jade, who he comes with, and then Emperor Palpatine and Visas Mars. Those are some legacy characters that don't require a whole lot of power text to farm. They're fairly easy to get to Gear 13 overall, and at the end of it, you're getting an extremely good Territory War team that's going to get you a lot of holds on defenses, as well as a very good GAC team, so you're kind of getting double jeopardy. You're getting an amazing Territory War team, an amazing GAC team, with some of the best Omicrons in the game. Next is Geos plus Poggle Omicron. Poggle Omicron is killer in the lower brackets. If you're in a guild that does well in Territory War, between 100 and 250 million galactic power, your guild probably has almost everybody with Poggle Omicrons. And the beauty of his Omicron is you only need to take the characters up to Gear 11 or Gear 12 for him to be really, really, really good and tricky. The Poggle Omicron at Gear 12 can counter full teams of Relic characters extremely easily, so this is definitely something that should be on your list, particularly for the lower players. Commander Luke Skywalker is another great one. As Reva Inquisitors become more common, as well as just Inquisitors in general, Commander Luke Skywalker is an amazing offensive team that we and my guild always look for. If you don't have CLS, by the time you hit 2 or 3 million galactic power, you really should focus on him because he is a massive offensive engine. Next, the Separatist droids with the Droideka Omicron. You're getting a good fleet with these guys, and the Droideka Omicron is very, very, very solid on defense and Territory War. Again, just like the Poggle Omicron, this Omicron is very good for lower level players interested in getting more competitive in GAC. If you're around 2-3 mil GP, and you have a full Relic Separatist droids Droideka Omicron team, you are going to be in great shape. Next, Imperial Troopers. Imperial Troopers are still one of the best offensive teams in the game. So our guild, we want everyone to have it, but particularly at lower levels, lower level players, you can use these Imperial Troopers to counter Sith Eternal Emperors, which are very, very, very effective and nice, as well as they're just a great offensive engine. So if you've got Imperial Troopers by low galactic power, they are able to punch up greatly in Territory War, so any guild would be happy to accept you if you have that squad. So let's talk a little bit about the conclusion. First of all, Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't get a competitive Territory War roster overnight. One of my guild mates, another guild officer in my guild, he says, the number one rule of Star Wars is patience, and a lot of people in this game just want to rush through everything. So patience, young Padawan, don't try and rush it. Next, you want to try and find a guild that matches your playstyle, casual, competitive, or PvP oriented. I'll say the best guild for account growth is a competitive and PvP oriented guild. You can find those at any GP, but just look for a guild that's consistently progressing. These guilds are typically the most stressful, so just keep in mind if you're not enjoying the competitive game style and this game is stressing you out in real life, there's nothing and there's no one that says that you should have to stress yourself out in order to get the best characters and be competitive in your fleet shard and everything like that. If you're not a competitive player, you don't need to be a competitive player. I'm simply saying this is the fastest way to grow. There's nothing wrong with being a non-competitive player or something like that. Just try and find a guild that matches your playstyle the best, and the guilds that are going to help you progress the quickest are definitely those competitive and PvP oriented guilds. So what's coming next? I've got a defensive and an offensive guide for guilds between each one of these 4 galactic power thresholds. So if your guild's in that threshold, this video is going to be helpful to you to teach you how to set defenses and what teams you should use on offenses. I've got 2 roster reviews that have been requested that are upcoming, as well as I'm working on, this is going to take a little bit because I'm editing it together and I'm doing some in-game footage. I'm going to try and make it better than my Riva videos. I'm doing an off-meta GL counters that you need to know that more lower level and free-to-play players could use. I'm not saying like, oh, if you get Captain Rex and your Phoenix up to Relic 8, you can counter Lord Vader and Riva. Obviously, it's not applicable. I'm more going to be focusing on things like how to counter Sith Eternal Emperor for lower level players, as well as Jedi Master Luke, and stuff like that that, a lot of a much wider audience could use, as countering Galactic Legends when you don't have one is a very, very, very important skill to have, and it just feels really good to conquer a Galactic Legend without a Galactic Legend. With that all being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As previously stated, I've got roster reviews that I've been doing, and if you're interested in one of those, please leave your GG in the comments below. Next, guild plugs. I talked about 3 guilds in this video. If you're interested in joining any of those guilds or wanting to hear more about any of those guilds, all of the guilds information is going to be linked in the description below with their Discord. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.